Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into self-discipline? I bet a lot of you are here because you're thinking, all right, time to tackle those goals, maybe kick that bad habit, or just seriously boost my willpower.
Sounds familiar.
That's exactly what we're doing today. We're exploring Curtis Leone's book, Self-Discipline, Why Self-Discipline is Lacking in Most of EA and How to Unleash It Now.
Great book.
We're going to unpack his definition of self-discipline, look at why it's so awesome, figure out why it sometimes feels impossible, and most importantly, figure out what we can actually do about it.
Yeah, a lot of people think they get self-discipline.
Right.
But Leone's definition, it really gets to the core of it. He says it's about having control, and not just over our actions, which I think is what a lot of people focus on, but over our emotions, feelings, even our thoughts.
Okay, so it's way deeper than just pushing through a tough workout or not eating that extra cookie.
Exactly. It's about those choices we make, even when they're not easy or fun. And actually, something that's really interesting is how he separates self-discipline from willpower.
Oh yeah, I can see how those get mixed up.
People use them interchangeably all the time.
What's the difference?
Okay, so think of willpower, like that burst of energy at the start, like a rocket launch.
Huh.
That gets you off the ground. Self-discipline, though, that's the sustained effort. It's what keeps the rocket going on its journey. It's like willpower might get you started, but it's self-discipline that keeps you going when it's not so exciting anymore and it gets tough.
I love that analogy. I think I've definitely fallen into that trap, thinking, okay, burst of willpower, that's all I need. And then 2 weeks later, I'm wondering why I totally crashed and burned.
It happens to the best of us. We get so pumped about a goal, we put in all this effort at the beginning, but we don't have the systems, the structure to keep it up.
Yeah.
That's where self-discipline really comes in.
Makes sense. So, okay, we all agree, self-discipline, that's the secret sauce. But why is it so hard to find? The title of this book, it literally says, self-discipline is lacking in most. Why is that? What's the deal?
Well, Leone tackles that head on. And one of the biggest things he addresses is this idea that you either have self-discipline or you don't. It's like an innate quality. But he argues it's really a skill, something you can develop, like learning an instrument or, a new language.
Okay, so there's hope for those of us who haven't quite mastered it yet.
Absolutely. There's hope for all of us. But he does say there are some really real challenges that we all face. Things like negative programming from our past, maybe the environments we're in, even just the fear of failure can hold us back.
Yeah, that fear of failure thing, that really hits home for me. I mean, it feels so much easier to just not even try than to risk messing up and feeling bad about it.
I think we all feel that to some degree. And he talks about how, laziness, low self-esteem, and even just constant temptation around us can make self-discipline feel impossible.
Okay, hold on. You said negative programming and environments. What does that actually look like? Give me an example.
Let's say you grew up in a house where everybody procrastinated, right? Maybe your parents always put things off until the last minute, and that just became your model for how to deal with things. That's a kind of negative programming. Or maybe you're surrounded by people who aren't supportive of your goals. Maybe they even discourage you.
Oof, yeah.
That's a negative environment, right? And it makes sense that it's hard to build discipline when you're constantly being pulled in the other direction.
You're fighting an uphill battle, basically. So what do? Do you have to, move to a monastery and meditate for 5 hours a day to finally achieve self-discipline?
Luckily, no. No monasteries required. What's really cool is that he says even if you're in a, let's say, less than ideal environment, you can still create your own positive space.
Okay, how?
It can be as simple as who you follow on social media. Think about it. Are you seeing posts that inspire you, motivate you, or are you bombarded with stuff you're trying to avoid? You have to be mindful of those inputs.
It's like creating your own mental gym, but instead of weights, it's positive messages.
Exactly. Surround yourself with the messages, the people that support your goals. It's subtle, but it makes a big difference.
I like that. So we've covered the what and the why. We've defined self-discipline and looked at why it can be so hard. But I'm sure listeners are thinking, okay, enough talk. How do I actually do this?
And that's where this book gets really good. Leone gives a clear roadmap. And step 1, figuring out your why.
Wait, isn't that kind of obvious? If you're setting a goal, you already know why you want to achieve it, right?
Well, it's deeper than that. It's about understanding your motivation, really getting to the heart of it. Why is this goal important to you specifically? How will your life actually be different once you achieve it? What are the good things you're working towards? And just as importantly, what are the bad things that might happen if you don't change? Leone suggests really visualizing this, seeing yourself succeeding and experiencing all those benefits, but also the downsides of not taking action.
So it's about connecting to the emotional reasons, not just the logical ones.
Exactly. It's finding that deep sense of purpose that will keep you going when things get rough. It's kind of like that classic, pain versus pleasure principle.
Right.
If you really connect to why this matters, the good and the bad, it's way stronger than just willpower alone.
Okay, yeah, this is more than just setting a goal and crossing your fingers. It's about understanding your motivation and creating that unshakable why that keeps you going.
Right. And once you have that foundation, the book gets into some really practical strategies. Honestly, some of them surprised me.
Okay, spill the beans. I'm ready for some serious self-discipline ninja warrior tactics.
All right, you ready for this? The first one, and this is crucial, is to stop waiting to feel like it.
Oh man, that's me. I'll start my diet on Monday when I'm less stressed, when Mercury's not in retrograde.
We've all been there. But Leone's like, nope. He says we have to realize that motivation often comes after you take action. You don't wait until you feel like going for a run. You put on your shoes and go. And then often once you're moving, the motivation kicks in.
That's such a different way to think about it. Don't wait for inspiration. Create it.
Exactly. And that leads to the next point, which is all about ditching the excuses. Those little stories we tell ourselves.
Oh, I've got a whole library of excuses. It's amazing how creative my mind can get when it comes to avoiding things I don't want to do.
We're all experts at it. But Leone says be honest with yourself. Identify the real reasons you're not doing something. It's about calling yourself out, recognizing when you're letting fear or laziness win.
Ouch. But probably necessary. It's like looking in the mirror being like, okay, time to change this.
Exactly. And then from that honest place, you can start to take real action.
Okay, so we've got our why. We're ditching the excuses. We're ready to act. What's next?
This is where it gets real. This is where the action plan comes in. You need a solid plan with specifics. Like, okay, what are the steps? What's the timeline? Even think about what could trip you up. It's like, potential obstacles and how you'll deal with them. It's like having a roadmap, not just for the journey, but for all the detours you might hit.
Okay, yeah, I love a good roadmap. It makes it all feel less scary, when you have a plan.
So exactly. And this is where you start flexing that self-discipline. Because let's face it, there'll be temptations.
Right.
Those moments when it's way easier to just give in than to stick with it.
Oh, yeah, procrastination is real. Any ninja warrior tactics for battling that? What does Leone say?
He's got some good ones. One thing is to, detach yourself from the stuff that pulls you off track.
Okay.
Like, let's say you're cutting back on sugar, right? Maybe don't keep a giant cookie jar on the counter. Out of sight, out of mind.
Simple, but smart. You're removing the temptation altogether. That makes sense.
Another one, and I thought this was cool, is to visualize yourself resisting the temptation. So let's say you're at a party, you're trying not to drink. Imagine yourself saying no to a drink, feeling good about it, like you're in control.
It's like mental rehearsal for the real thing.
Exactly. And there's also the classic weighing the immediate gratification versus the long-term consequences. It's reminding yourself why you're doing this in the first place, the big picture.
Sometimes we need that long-term view to keep us going.
Yeah.
What about those moments when you're right there and the craving hits hard? What do you do then?
Distract yourself. Sometimes the best thing is to just change your focus, go for a walk, call a friend, anything to get your mind off it.
Okay, don't give in. Just redirect that energy. Love it. We can't be on all the time, though, right? Leone doesn't want us to become like self-disciplined robots, does he?
No way. In fact, he's got a whole section on self-care and motivation. It's not just about pushing through. It's about realizing that self-discipline is easier when you're taking care of yourself.
So it's not all about deprivation and willpower.
Right. It's knowing you're more likely to succeed when you feel good, both physically and mentally.
Totally agree with that. What kinds of things does he suggest?
He's big on praising yourself for your accomplishments. It's easy to focus on what we haven't done, but celebrating those wins, even the small ones, it keeps you going.
Yeah, little victories add up, right?
For sure. And then there's the physical stuff. Healthy eating, getting enough sleep, managing stress, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
All of that contributes to your well-being, makes it easier to stay disciplined.
It's interesting how it all ties together. It's like setting yourself up for success, not just relying on brute force.
Totally. It's a holistic approach. And then, and I think you'll like this part, he talks about exercises for boosting self-discipline.
Oh, challenges. I'm in. Tell me more.
These are like little everyday things that help you practice self-control. Things like giving up your seat on the bus or doing a chore right away instead of putting it off, or even taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
They seem so simple, but I can see how they would add up. It's like those tiny weightlifting reps that lead to bigger gains.
Love that analogy. It's those small acts of discipline done consistently that can lead to bigger changes in your life.
So it's not about waiting for some big moment. It's about proving to yourself that you can do it and building from there.
Exactly. Small steps, big changes.
Okay, we've covered a lot. We've defined self-discipline, why it's good, why it's hard. But the best part is those actionable strategies and exercises. It's not just theory. It's like, okay, here's how you actually do this.
It's a very practical book. What stood out to you the most?
Honestly,
Yeah.
that part about not waiting to feel like it, that's huge for me. I'm a pro at procrastinating, always waiting for the perfect moment. But the idea of just taking action, even when I don't feel like it, mind-blowing.
It's a game changer, and I think it goes hand in hand with that detailed action plan. When you've got that roadmap, it's easier to overcome that hesitation.
Yeah, you've already made the decision, you've planned for the obstacles, so there's less room for doubt.
You're taking the decision-making out of the moment of temptation. You've already decided what you're going to do.
Brilliant. I also love the emphasis on self-care. It's like you're more likely to succeed when you feel good.
It's about sustainability, not just a quick burst of willpower.
Totally. Speaking of sustainability, I'm curious about those exercises. Like giving up your seat or taking the stairs. Do those little things really make a difference?
I think so. It's about being mindful, but with your actions. You're choosing to do something that might not be the easiest or most comfortable, and that strengthens your ability to resist impulses in other areas.
It's like self-control ripples outward.
Exactly. And remember, this is a process, not a destination. There will be times when we slip up.
It's not about being perfect, it's about progress.
Right. It's about learning from those slip-ups and getting back on track. The key is to keep practicing, strengthening that muscle, and over time, those choices that felt hard become more automatic.
It's like any skill. It takes time, effort, consistency.
And a lot of self-compassion, too.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm feeling really inspired to put all this into practice.
Me too. This book has a lot of great tools for anyone who wants to boost their self-discipline and achieve their goals.
It definitely does. But before we go, is there anything else from the book you think is important for our listeners to remember?
One of the most important things is that self-discipline is ultimately about freedom. It's not about restricting yourself. It's about empowering yourself to make choices that match your values and goals.
It's like when you have self-discipline, you're not controlled by your impulses or bad habits. You're free to create the life you actually want.
Exactly. It's about taking control of your actions, your thoughts, your emotions, so you can live intentionally.
Love that. Okay, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about. But before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with a little challenge.
Oh, I like a good challenge.
Listeners, what's one small thing you could do today to start working that self-discipline muscle? Maybe it's finally cleaning out that junk drawer, resisting that afternoon sugar craving, or going to bed 30 minutes earlier.
Great examples.
It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Remember, it's all about building momentum. One small win at a time. Choose something you can do, commit to it, and celebrate that win. Who knows? That small action might be the start of some bigger changes down the road.
It very well could be.
All right, on that inspiring note, I think we'll wrap things up here. Huge thanks to you for this amazing deep dive into self-discipline.
My pleasure.
And to all of you listening, keep diving deeper into the topics that matter to you. Until next time, happy learning.
Yeah, it's amazing how those small wins can really make you feel like, okay, I can do this.
They totally do. And I think what I really like about this book is how it makes self-discipline about freedom, not like restriction.
Right, exactly.
It's not about saying no to all the good stuff. It's about making choices that are true to you, you know? Like really aligning with what you want. You mentioned earlier about how research shows there's a link between self-discipline and happiness.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about that. You think people who are more disciplined actually experience more joy? It's a great question. And from what I've read, and just like in my own life,
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's because self-discipline, when you do it in a healthy way, it leads to this sense of like alignment.
Alignment. Interesting. What do you mean by that?
It's about your actions matching your values. You know, when we give in to temptation all the time or we put off the stuff that really matters, it creates this like dissonance. We're not living how we really want to or like according to what we believe.
Oh, I totally get that. It's that feeling of Ugh, I know I should be doing this, but I'm doing that instead.
Exactly. And that conflict, it can be exhausting. But when you build self-discipline, you start to close that gap. You're making choices that support your goals, you actually follow through, and that creates this feeling of harmony inside.
It's like your actions and your values are finally on the same team.
Exactly. And I think that feeling, that alignment, is a big part of happiness. It's about feeling good about yourself, about the choices you make, knowing you're on the right path.
So self-discipline isn't just about like achieving stuff. It's about finding that inner peace.
I love that. I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Just remember, this whole journey to better self-discipline, it's ongoing. It's about those daily choices you make and being kind to yourself along the way. We'll mess up sometimes. We'll have moments of weakness. The important thing is to keep learning, keep growing, keep trying to be the best version of you.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an awesome deep dive.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And all of you listening, we hope you got some helpful tools and inspiration today. Remember, even those small steps can lead to big changes, so start where you are and keep moving forward. Until next time, happy learning.